Hi, this is Mrs. Freeze, and today we're going to talk about the area of a circle. This is from Chapter 12, Lesson 2. Area is defined as the number of square units that fit inside of a circle. As you can see, I have a circle drawn on grid paper here, and if we were able to count the number of square units inside that circle accurately, we would know how many square units were inside this circle. Let's estimate, kind of like we did on our circle lab, okay? So I know I have a square here, and this square is 4 by 4, so there are 16 full square units in this part of my circle. If I estimate the number of square units each one of these are, I would say that each one of these had about 3 square units. Again, I'm estimating because I'm not sure exactly how many of these partial squares work to make a full square. So that gives me 12 plus 16. I'm estimating there are about 28 square units inside that circle. Now there is a way that I can know for sure how many square units are in that circle, and that is to use the formula for finding the area of a circle. The formula for finding the area of a circle is your pi, 3.14, times radius squared. Pi times radius times radius. Well, let's look at this circle again. Let's see if we can find the radius. I'm going to take off our estimate. We estimated it to be 28. And if I look at the center of my circle here, right, there's the center of my circle. I need to find my radius. That goes halfway across. Well, my radius is 1, 2, 3 units. So my radius is 3 units long. So let's substitute our radius into our formula. Okay, that gives me radius times radius, 3 times 3, times pi, 3.14. Let's see how close our estimate was to the actual area. 3.14 times 9. Aha! That gives us 28 and 2600 square units. Not too bad. We estimated 28 and we weren't too far off. We were 26 hundredths off. All right, let's practice using the area formula. Here we are given a circle, and this circle is labeled with 10 inches that goes from the center of the circle halfway across. They have given us the radius. Okay, let's go ahead and substitute what we have into our formula. Area is going to be calculated by pi times my radius squared. I'm going to multiply my radius times my radius. Okay, squared is just multiplying the number times itself. Okay, just like we did on circumference, we're going to answer this in terms of pi, and then we're going to answer it with a calculated answer. So in order to answer it in terms of pi, all we need to do is keep our pi symbol and multiply our numbers out. 10 times 10 is 100. So 100 pi inches squared, that's our answer in terms of pi. To calculate the answer, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to multiply 100 times 3.14. We know 100 times 3.14 is 314. That tells us that inside this circle, we could fit 314 square units. Now, I wanted to talk about the different types of answers you'll get when you multiply by 3.14 and when you multiply by the pi symbol that's on your calculator. So we multiplied 100 times 3.14 here and we got 314. If you were to use the pi symbol on your calculator, you would get a slightly different answer. Okay? It doesn't mean your answer is wrong. It just means they've carried the decimal out farther. So if you're using 3.14 and you're checking your answers with the answers in the back of the book, they could be slightly different. And that's okay, just as long as your answer is close. So I'm going to go ahead and multiply 100 times and use the pi symbol on my calculator. And that's actually going to give me this answer, 314.16. It's 159, but I'm going to round it there. See, there's a slight difference in those two answers, and that's okay. Okay? So your answer, if you just use 3.14, can be a little different than the answer than if you use the pi button on your calculator. Our next problem, they give us a line that goes through the center and all the way across. That is the diameter. Well, my formula calls for me to use the radius. So I always have to make sure that I'm substituting in the proper thing from the problem that I'm given. I'm always got to make sure if they give me the diameter, I'm finding the radius. If my diameter is 30 inches, then my radius is half of that, which is 15. So I got to make sure I'm substituting in the right thing. So my area is equal to, I'm going to go ahead and write my radius first, 15 times 15 times pi. My answer in terms of pi is 225 pi. And we still have inches for our units, inches squared. There's my answer in terms of pi. And then I'm going to take my calculator, 225 times 3.14. That gives me 706 and 5/10 inches squared. So that's how many square units would fit inside that circle. And just to make sure that you understand the difference between multiplying by 3.14 and the pi button, let's go ahead and multiply 225 times the pi button. And that's going to give you, again, a slightly different answer. So if you multiply by your pi button, that's 706.86. Okay, see? Here I have 5 in the tens place, and here I have 8 in the tens place. These are all correct answers, so don't get confused if you're using 3.14 and you look in the back of the book and it's a slightly different answer. Well, what if I have half of a circle? Remember when we did the circumference notes, we drew a circle and we said you have to make sure that you're only multiplying it by how much of a circle you have. In this case, if I broke my circle up into 4 pieces, each piece would be 2,500 or 1/4 of the circle. Okay? Well, up here, I can see that I have 2 of these pieces. That gives me half of a circle. Now, again, I want to start with my formula, pi times radius squared. If I look at my semicircle, that's what a half circle is called. If I look at my semicircle, I see that they've given me a measure from the center of the circle halfway across. We know that represents the radius. 14 is my radius. And so I'm going to take my radius times my radius, 14, times 14. But I'm going to only multiply, I want to cut that in half because I only have half a circle, and then times my pi. I like to put my pi at the end, so when I do my pi answer, it's already at the end. All right, when I multiply 14 times a half, that gives me 7. And then I'm going to go ahead and multiply 7 times 14. That gives me 98. So my answer in terms of pi is 98 pi yards squared. Okay, so area is 98 yards squared, or calculated times 3.14, and that gives me 307 and 72 hundredths yards squared. That's my calculated answer. All right, what I'd like you to do right now is, in a moment, let's have you pause the video. You're going to practice these two problems, but make sure that you are reading. Here, we want you to find the area and circumference of this part of a circle. And then on this one, I want you to find the area of the unshaded part. Okay, pause the video now and complete both of these practice problems. All right, let's see how you did. The first partial circle represented only a fourth of the circle. And the first thing that they asked us to do was to find the area. I know that area is found by my radius squared times pi. They have given me the radius because this is from the center halfway across my circle. I'm going to take my radius times how much of a circle I have. I have 25 hundredths of a circle here times pi. That gives me, for my answer in terms of pi, the area is 9 pi inches squared. My answer that's calculated when I multiply 9 times 3.14, that gives me 28 and 26 hundredths inches squared. Circumference is found, in this case they've given me the radius, so I'm going to multiply 2 times my radius times pi. 2 times my radius gives me 12, and I have 1/4 of a circle times pi. My answer in terms of pi is 3 pi inches. Okay, that's this red, and I'm going to go over it now with blue. This is the part, the circumference. I'm just finding this part. Okay, I'm not finding anything else. It's just the outside of the piece of the circle. When I multiply 3 times pi, that's 9 and 42 hundredths inches. On this one, they wanted us to find the unshaded region. Well, I know here 25 hundredths of it is shaded. So that means my unshaded is going to be 75 hundredths. And I've got my area here. Okay, area. Radius times pi. I've got my symbol here and my calculated, my 3.14, times 75 hundredths of the circle. So my answer in terms of pi is 60 and 75 hundredths pi feet squared. And my calculated answer is 190 and 76 hundredths feet squared. If you need to re-watch this part of the video because you didn't do as well as you wanted to, please do so now. Back up and rework these problems. Last, we're going to do a few word problems because they're not always going to tell you to find circumference and tell you to find area. They're going to give you a problem and they're going to expect you to know that. If you're finding the distance around a circle, you have to use circumference. And that if you're finding the square units or space inside the circle, it's area. Okay, so the first problem says Adrienne bought an 8-foot leash for her dog. And you can see here's her dog. And this is her leash. She bought an 8-foot leash here. And it's fully extended. It goes from the center of the circle halfway across. She wants to find the distance the dog runs when it runs one circle with the leash fully extended. Now, I'm going to tell you this one circle is one revolution. You're going to see that word below. So I'm going to take you one revolution or one circle around. She wants to know how far that dog is going in one circle, or One revolution is another way to put it. After you find one time around, one revolution, then they're asking you to find how far would the dog go if it went 25 revolutions. The second problem says the bottom of a circular swimming pool with a diameter of 30 feet is painted blue. How many square feet are blue? I would draw a circle and label it with the diameter before you started solving that problem. Okay, pause the video now, complete these practice problems, and we'll check in with you in a minute. Let's see how you did. So when Adrienne was trying to find one circle or one revolution around the circle, she was trying to find circumference. Circumference is the distance around the circle. So we're given radius, two of my radii, 2 times 8 times pi. That's how we got our answer in terms of pi as 16 pi. 16 times 3.14 is 50 and 24/100 total feet around the circle one time, one revolution around. If I wanted to see how far that was in 25 revolutions, I would multiply my 50.24, 50 and 24/100 times 25. That would give me 1,256 feet total if the dog walked 25 revolutions around the circle. If I wanted to put that answer in terms of pi, I would just multiply my 16 times 25 times pi, and that's how I came up with 400 pi feet around the circle. The second problem asks how many square feet would actually need to be painted if I had a circular pool with a diameter of 30 feet. Well, that's area, so I'm going to use my area formula. My area formula requires me to have the radius. Half of 30 is 15. So 15 times 15 times pi, 225 pi feet squared is my answer in terms of pi. And when I multiply that out, I get 706 and 5/10 square feet of paint that I would need in order to paint the bottom of this circular pool. All right, go ahead and move on to your homework. Please remember when you're correcting that if you are just using 3.14, that it could be slightly different than the answer in the back of your book because the book uses the pi button. Have a great day.